to the Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Grants 101. This is a workshop held in collaboration with the MV Grow program, which is powered by the College of Southern Nevada. I am your facilitator for today. My name is Janise Wiggins, and I am the CEO and principal grant writer of Grant Me Success. So, we are going to be going through a lot of information today to share with you about grants, primarily for small businesses, but also for nonprofits as well. So just a little bit about myself. I have an extensive background in grant writing and empowering organizations to be successful by navigating funding opportunities. I'm a social entrepreneur. That's how I refer to myself. And although this says I have more than 20 years, really I have like over 25 years of experience teaching nonprofits and small businesses how to develop highly effective programs that put them in prime position to be able to be successful in the grant sector. I hold a bachelor's degree in social work as well as a master's in public administration, and I'm currently pursuing a doctorate in public affairs. And there are always new things on the horizon when it comes to me. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and somehow I keep getting put in positions to learn more and more and more. And so I have friends that are in the mental health sector. Trina Marie, you know this. They're like, are you going to go back and get a master's in social work? And would you consider getting into therapy and mental and behavioral health? Who knows? Some people are asking about some other fields for me, but I'm like, let me just stick to one goal at a time. Um, Grants is something that I got into throughout my 26-year career here in the Las Vegas Valley as a public servant. I've worked for various nonprofit organizations as well as various government entities, including the Southern Nevada Health District, the state of Nevada, Clark County Social Service. I've worked in the Clark County Detention Center as well as with the Nevada State Department of Corrections, also Nevada Medicaid. So, a wide variety of government entities, as you see. And what was common in those experiences is that either the organization itself or the programs that I work with or my job and position was funded by a grant. And while I was at the Southern Nevada Health District, I had the opportunity to share an office with a young lady who was part of our fiscal team, and she was a management analyst. And I would always hear her talking about the grants and the budgets, the grants and the budgets. And I would ear hustle. And I eventually asked her, hey, you're always talking about grants, and I think I kind of understand the concept of it, but would you teach me and mentor me about grants? And she did. And part of that mentorship, she suggested that I go and become what's called a federal grant reviewer. And so I got my resume together and she helped me she critiqued my resume and I began submitting my resume to various federal organizations. And I started as a federal grant reviewer in 2003, a long time ago now, 23 years ago. And I reviewed for several federal government agencies, including HRSA, SAMHSA, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, the U.S. Department of Treasury, AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, so many different federal organizations. And that's how I learned about grants. I sort of reverse engineered this. Remember, I'm a social worker really by education. And so primarily my work experience had been working in delivering direct services to clients and working with clients. But now through my business, my clients are people like you all, business owners, small business owners, nonprofit organizations, government entities, and that's in the social work world what we now call macro social work, because organizations are my clients as opposed to micro. social work, which is individuals or family units being your clients. Now the community is my client. And so that's my background in grants. I've helped my clients to be able to get access to over, that number needs to go up now, $23 million in federal, state, local, and foundation funding and sponsorships. And that's what I'm going to talk with you about today. So, as I shared with you in the beginning, this program is hosted in collaboration with the Envy Grow program. And if you guys are not familiar, or if you are familiar with Envy Grow, please connect with them on their social media platforms. You can find them on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Envy Grow. Their website is envygrow.org. And if you would like to email them, you can email them at envygrow@csn.edu. And I know that we have two representatives, Eric and Maggie, that are here from the Envy Grow program. Oh, Mark is here as well. Just want to give you guys an opportunity if any of you, any three of you would like to come off of mute and share a little bit more about Envy Grow.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a ham, so I'll be happy to jump on. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. I hope that you enjoy this workshop and that you learn a lot. Nevada Grow is really here to support small business owners. So if you haven't signed up, nbgrow.org is where you sign up to get resources that help your business. And even if you don't think you qualify by making at least $35,000 a year, being based in Nevada, having a business plan, um, uh, operating it for at least 2 years, still sign up because we have other support services. For example, the Capital Readiness Program, where we have an incubator and an accelerator that helps to start businesses and grow businesses. So I won't take up all the time. I'll drop the information in the chat, and I'm also going to drop a link for a survey. So at the end of this event, please click the link and fill out a survey for us. Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening.
Thank you so much, Eric. Eric is the director of the Envy Grow program, and so he invited us to collaborate and host this free educational program for you all tonight because they really want to see Nevada businesses, nonprofits, organizations grow in Nevada. That's why we are here. If you'd like to connect with Grant Me Success, you can connect with us on social media platforms, Grant Me Success across all platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Our website is Grant Me Success. You can email me, Janise, my first name, at Grant Me Success. And then there's a phone number there for you as well. All right, you guys. So let's get into today's workshop and what our objectives are for today. I want to help you all to understand where grants come from and learn effective search techniques and to find aligned funding opportunities. And those things, first and foremost, is what's important. I know that people always just say, just tell me the websites. Just give me the websites of where to find the grant. But when you find a grant opportunity, you need to be able to understand what's being asked of your business or nonprofit or organization. To be able to apply for that, you need to understand the eligibility criteria and know if it's a good fit for your organization, or else you may just be wasting time. And you don't want to do that. Time is valuable. I know for you all as business owners, because I am one as well. And I understand that you may be multitasking. And so you just want to make sure that you're doing that as effectively as possible if you are also your organization's grant writer. Okay. I'm going to talk about how you can search effectively to identify specific grants that are really tailored to your organization's needs. And then, of course, answer questions that you may have outside of that. Okay, so let's talk about the grant sources in general and what the grant landscape looks like. So grants come from various sources, including government bodies, foundations, and private corporations. And let's lay a foundation in understanding, first of all, for what a grant is. What I understand is that we have about 19 people here on the webinar right now, and all 19 of us may have a different understanding about what a grant is. So I want to set a solid foundation for us all to work from, okay? So a grant is to fund a specific activity, and write this down if you're taking notes. It's to fund a specific activity, service, product, or facility. Okay. Now, people often ask me, Janise, can a grant pay for things like equipment? Sure, it can pay for equipment, but it needs to be related to what? A specific activity, product, service, facility, okay? One of those items. Um, you may ask, can a grant pay for staffing? Sure, but it needs to be related to what? A specific activity, product, service, right? Facility. So when I say facility, then that means, and you may be asking, can a grant pay for rent, right? Maybe you need to rent a facility to run and operate your business from. Sure, there are grants that pay for certain operational expenses, which could include rent. Um, Sometimes there are capital related grants that might even help to build a facility and pay for construction. Okay, so there are construction related grants and there are non construction grants. Okay, um, and when we what makes grants attractive to a lot of business owners and nonprofits is that, as you may have heard, most of the time you do not have to pay grant funding back to the funder. And this is true for the most part. There are some nuances to that, and I'll talk about some of those nuances now. So, most of the time, you don't have to pay a grant back as long as you are compliant with using the funding for the specific activity, service, product, facility that you told the funder that you were going to use that money for. Okay. So, with a grant, most grants are comprised of two major components: a narrative, that's where you're explaining in writing in detail how you're going to spend the grant funds. And then the second part of most grant applications includes a budget. The budget is where you quantitatively, with numbers, numerically, explain to the funder how you're going to use the money. And when they approve your grant, or they say, "Hey, your grant was has been awarded," yay, you cheer, you celebrate. But you are also entering into a contract, a contractual relationship with that funder, and you are agreeing to using the funding how you said you would in your application. Okay. And what could change that is if you end up not spending the funding how you said that you would, the grant funder could come back and say, you didn't spend the money how you said you would or how we agreed to because you signed a contract or agreement with us. And now you may have to pay back any funds that was not spent properly, or you may hear the term that was spent inappropriately. Okay. I saw a hand up. Go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask your question.
I'm taking notes and I wanted to make sure I got that. You said that there's two parts. I got the budget part. What was the other word you used?
And the narrative.
Narrative.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. So, you guys, thank you so much for that question. The grant sector or grant industry is laden with its own specific terminology. And so, throughout the presentation, if there's certain terminology that you're not aware of, please feel free to raise your hand or put in the chat because I'm trying to monitor the chat as well and see if you guys have questions. So feel free to just like put that term in the chat, and then that way it'll pop up and I'll see like, oh, they're not familiar with that term, and I'll go back and I'll explain that term. So the narrative part is just, again, an explanation of you saying how you want to spend the money. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit more about the narrative in just a moment. So, by learning the nuances of different funding sources, organizations can prioritize their efforts and focus on grants that align best with their objectives and projects. This means that your organization, if you're a nonprofit, has something called a mission. And your business also, you have a mission and you have specific products and services that you are wanting to sell. So that means because you see a grant on social media, because now I'm seeing more and more often grants being promoted on social media, or someone sends you a grant. Like I have people who email me all the time because they know I'm in the grant sector, or they text me or they DM me and say, "Hey, found this grant. Look at this grant." Um, you have to ensure that that grant is in alignment with the mission of your organization or in alignment with your specific product and service that you're selling through your business. And if that's not the case, don't apply for that funding, or you need to contact the funder and ask for clarification to ensure that that is an appropriate grant for your business, okay, or for your nonprofit organization. Grant funders, it is okay to contact them, okay? Contact them via email, or if they say on their website or on their social media that it's okay to inbox them or to call them, feel free to do that. But I would much rather you get in contact with the funder first to ask clarifying questions versus you filling out an application and then realizing on the back end and getting a denial letter that says, oh, you don't qualify for this grant. You're not even an eligible organization for our grant opportunity. Okay. And I've had many people that I've spoken to over the years that has happened to. And so, what I want to provide to you guys tonight are some tips about how you can make sure that that doesn't happen to you, okay? Or it happens as least as possible. All righty. So, your organization right now, you are working to build your grant strategy. And I am so excited for you guys because the very first step in your grant strategy is education, is you being informed and you knowing about grants first and foremost. The second step that I recommend is grant preparation. And I'm going to give you guys some tips about how you can start to prepare your organization to apply for grants, okay? Grant strategies, grant planning involves meticulous planning to identify suitable sources for your organization. Um, I I recommend to my clients that while there are a lot of grants in the government sector, whether it be federal, state, local, sometimes that, and when I say local, I mean county level or city level, okay, municipalities. While there might be a lot of grants in the government sector, you need to know that oftentimes they are the most stringent. Government grants have the most stringent requirements, oftentimes, especially on the federal level. They require lots of documentation, again, lots of narrative, lots of budget supporting documentations. They may say upload your tax history, upload your EIN form to show us proof that you have an EIN number, upload job descriptions if you're asking for salary to be paid for. So lots of documentation that you'll need. And if you're taking notes now, you can write that in your grant preparation section of your notes, right? You'll need taxes. If you're asking funding for salaries, you'll need job descriptions, okay? Your EIN number. I'm going to stop for a pop quiz really quickly. For those business owners and nonprofits alike, tell me the name of the documentation that you need to show your EIN number. Like, where would you find that? You can put it in the chat or feel free to take yourself off of mute and let me know. And listen, there are no wrong answers tonight. We are all learning together. So, do you guys know the name of the form where your EIN number is located? Want to take a guess?
In
Come on,
some
you guys.
IRS form. I don't
It
know the
is a
name. Yeah.
IRS form.
This form.
Yes, yes, yes. Anybody know the name of that IRS form? You guys got this when you first started your entity. You had to go online to the IRS's website and sign up for EIN number. And they said to you, most likely, do you want this form emailed to you? Do you want to download it? Or do you want this form mailed to you? That form is called, let me see, I see something in the chat. Yes, go Angela. Absolutely. It is the IRS form SS4. So when you're applying for a grant, if ever you are asked for proof of your EIN number, they are talking about the SS4 form. They are not talking about your business license. Okay. A lot of people get that confused and they will submit the incorrect documentation. But if ever in a grant, they're asking you for proof of your EIN number, they're asking for that IRS SS4 form. If you do not have your SS4 form, or if you don't know if you have the SS4 form, you can call the IRS and just ask them to mail you a copy of that. Okay? All right. Additionally, foundations and corporations often look for projects that resonate with their mission. So, outside of government organizations and entities, you can also find grants through foundations, corporations, other philanthropic organizations. There are many people that you may have heard the term philanthropist. And so they may be looking to offer funding to grants to organizations like businesses and nonprofits as well. Okay. All right, let's dig a little bit deeper into these various funding sources. So here are some major categories. There are definitely more than what is presented here, but just for our hour and a half for today, we're going to cover these four. And I might, touch on some others and give you some other ideas. So federal funding. Hot topic, right? Hot topic since the beginning of this year. One of the major questions that I get about federal funding is, Janise, are there still federal grants available? Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. What I have been saying to people is that while we need to pay attention to the conversation that's happening around federal grants, please don't be tricked out of your position. Do you guys know what I mean by that? I'm trying to be real delicate. Please don't be tricked out of your position, right? Meaning that a whole lot of talk and distraction can happen oftentimes, and it makes you start thinking differently sometimes, right? Like maybe I won't. Ah, and then they got you, right? So I want you to maintain an optimistic mindset, okay? Grant funding, as well as being a business owner and a leader in the nonprofit sector, requires you to have a certain fortitude when it comes to applying for funding and seeking funding, okay? So if there are changes, definitely, and maybe perhaps money has shifted from here to here, okay? But money is still flowing on the federal level. Um, and so what I would encourage you to do is to seek out and understand and know about your industry in your specific sector and where that federal funding might be sitting. Okay. It's parked somewhere. So, for example, let's say my nonprofit organization is engaged in youth literacy and or tutoring and education, or even my business, my small business. I have a tutoring service, okay? And or I provide, let's say, SAT and ACT preparation. Can you think where I might want to look on the federal level for grants? Oftentimes,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Cameron.
Oh, I was just gonna say Clark County School District.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so that's on the local level, but on the federal level, you might want to look like within the Department of Education, right? Perhaps. So, in the grant industry and grant sector, things are really connected and intertwined, and you can, if you guys remember back like in elementary school, right? Or junior high school or high school, even English classes, remember they used to tell us about context clues? Do you guys remember that term? Right? Look for the context clues, right, when you're reading something. And so, in your business, in your nonprofit organization, you want to look for the context clues. And the context clues are what is your product? What is your service? What is the activity that you are providing? That will give you a clue about where the funding might be that is connected to possibly offering a grant for your business. So let's say I'm in the health sector, the health industry. Where on the federal level might I want to look for grants? The Department of Health and Human Services, right? The Centers for Disease Control, if I'm engaging in something that has to do with infectious disease or chronic disease. If I'm in the industry of mental and behavioral health, I want to look at the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, right? So, by you knowing your industry, you can begin to determine where might I want to look for grant funding on a federal level. Okay. And I saw someone share some really wonderful websites that you will definitely need to know about when it comes to federal funding. Those two websites are grants.gov as well as sam.gov. They have two different purposes. Okay. The first website that I'll talk to you about, just because it will connect with your mind much more quickly, and then I'm going to backtrack to a different website. So, grants.gov. If you want to search for federal grant opportunities, you can go to the website grants.gov. That is the hosting website for all grants federal. Okay. That website will have a variety of filters on their website to be able to help you get through those opportunities, because there are probably 10,000 or more grant opportunities on grants.gov. And what you want to do is narrow those down. And the reason why it's so many is because that website will host both active grants, meaning that they're open right now that you can apply for, but that site also hosts some grants that have closed already and that are no longer seeking applicants, or they have what's called forecasted grants, which means we think that we're going to get funding to, to put this grant out, but we're waiting for Congress to pass, right, and authorize that funding. So that's considered forecasted. So just know when you go on grants.gov, look for the open grants, okay, or active grants if you want to know about right now, what you can apply for now. There is a filter option on that website that says forecasted. When I'm looking for grants on that website, sometimes I deselect forecasted because I don't want to know what, I only want to know what I can apply for right now, right? And then the older grants, you probably want to deselect that option also. I forget exactly what it's called, but you'll know it when you see it on there. You can also filter by agency name on grants.gov as well. And that's where I say you need to use kind of like the agency name as your context clue, right? To make sure that it's in your sector or in your industry for your organization. Now, the other website that was shared in the chat is sam.gov. The importance of sam.gov is that it will produce something for you called a unique entity identifier or a UEI number. Okay. Sam.gov will give you what's called a UEI number and also something that is called a cage code. Okay. And UEI again stands for Unique Entity Identifier. And what's important about having a UEI and a cage code is that you cannot be a recipient of a federal grant, typically a state grant, or a local grant, like a county grant or a city grant, without having a UEI number and a cage code. Those applications will often ask you for your UEI number and or for your cage code. And so it can often take you anywhere between like 5 to 7 business days to set this account up for sam.gov. And so please apply for that now. Go onto sam.gov and apply for your UEI and cage code now because it has to go through a couple of different verification processes for sam.gov. It talks the sam.gov system, which is run by one federal government agency, talks to a system that is run by the IRS, and it tries to validate information and make sure that whatever your business or nonprofit has reported and information like your address that you have reported to the IRS is the same information that you are reporting in the sam.gov system. Okay. If you guys need help with sam.gov registration, I am certain that there are many organizations out there that can help you do that. Grant Me Success is available to help you with sam.gov registration. There is a fee that we charge for our time in helping you to do that. But please do not pay upwards of, like one of my clients who texted me. I told her, I said, go and do sam.gov, register your sam.gov. And I'm glad that she texted me because she said, Janise, should I be paying $600 for sam.gov registration? No, right? So you guys know that there are services out there, right, that say, "Oh, we help you do your registration paperwork for your business," right? Like we'll file for your EIN number for you, we'll file for your business license for you. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or bad service. It's fine. That's their business. But when it comes to your sam.gov registration, it is something that you can do for yourself, or it is something that you can be walked through, right? Like I can help walk you through that for much less than $600. Okay. So make sure also that you are only going to websites that say .gov at the end when you are dealing with federal government grants, when you are dealing with your sam.gov registration, please make sure it says GOV at the end. I know that there are other look-alike websites, right? You guys know, like if you enter or you Google something, how oftentimes those sponsored websites will come up first. You guys know what I'm talking about? If you were to Google SAM registration or apply for my UEI, you are going to get a whole lot of other sponsored websites, okay? And those are not the official government websites. So just make sure that you are using the official government websites when you're dealing with federal grants or registering for anything federal. And if you have a question, feel free to email me. You have my email, and you can say, hey, Janise, is this a legit website? Okay, I'm happy to tell you that information at no cost to you. I'd rather you try to validate and verify information before you think that you're doing the right thing, but you're really on the wrong website. Okay. The cage code is not the same thing as your UEI number. They are two distinctly different numbers. Your UEI number, I can't remember, it's a long number. It's a combination of letters and numbers. It's alphanumeric and it's like, I don't know, 10 to 14 digits long. I can't remember exactly how long it is. But your cage code is only like 5 or 6 digits. It's also alphanumeric, but it's a shorter number. Okay. I think of it like this. This is not exactly what it is, but just so that we can give some context. Think about your EIN number as your organization's social security number. Okay. Then think about your UEI number as, let's say, I don't know, the driver's license number. Okay. You know how we have all these numbers that we're associated with in life, all right? So let's say the UEI number might be your organization's driver's license number. And then, I don't know, let's say the cage code is something like a PIN number. Okay. So there are all these different type of numbers that you have that are associated with your business, and they all serve a different function and have a different meaning. Okay. All righty, you guys. Great questions, great dialogue. Let's get into state grants. So, state grants here in the state of Nevada, and I'm presuming that most of us here are businesses or organizations in the state of Nevada. If not, feel free to put in the chat and let me know what other state you're in so I can speak maybe a little bit more specifically to that one. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to talk about Nevada specifically. In Nevada, we have something that is called the Office of Federal Assistance. Office of Federal Assistance. And it's OFA for short, but you can look that up. They are also a very helpful organization and website to be able to access an entity and organization that provides education. They will also help you search for federal grants and also state grants. Okay. On their website, they have a list of state grant opportunities. So you can go to ofa.nv.gov. Remember, I said that .gov. We like that .gov ending. That's how we kind of know that we're on the right path. And that is the Nevada Office of Federal Assistance. I'm trying to put that in the chat for you. Office of Federal Assistance. And go onto their website because I happen to know that they are having a conference in September, you guys, in Las Vegas. The Nevada Office of Federal Assistance is bringing a Silver State statewide conference, and I think it's their Silver State Grant and Purchasing Conference, I believe is what it is. Go onto their website because registration is open right now. It's early bird registration, I believe, and I think that conference is September 1st through the 3rd, you guys. And what's beneficial about that is that they're going to have a wide variety of speakers talking about grants as well as purchasing. That means like contracting. How do you contract with state government or local governments? Okay, they're going to be sharing that information with you all, with small businesses and nonprofits about grants as well as purchasing opportunities and procurement opportunities. On the state level, state organizations are kind of organized in a similar way, departmentally, the way that the federal government is organized. So, again, think about your business, and there might be a state agency where you can request funding on a state level. Now, many state grants are what's called a pass-through grant. Anybody know what I mean by that? This is some more grant lingo or terminology. Do you guys, Trina Marie, I see your question. I can send you the link directly. email me. Email me and just remind me, okay? Janise at grantmesuccess.com because I registered already. So yes, pass through. Okay, you guys don't know what that is. Pass through. What that means is money starts at the federal level. Okay, the money started out at the federal level, and the federal government gave it to a state agency. So let's say on the federal level, the money started out with the Department of Health and Human Services on the federal level, and they gave, let's say, $5 million to the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services. And then the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services is going to turn around and sub-grant that money out to local nonprofits and businesses. Does that make sense? That's what we would call a pass-through grant, meaning that it's coming from one government entity down to another government entity down into the community. Okay. So there are certain grants that are pass-through grants. There's also pass-through grants that may be available on the county level and on the city level. So here in Southern Nevada, if you're conducting business and you're looking for grants, you can look with Clark County. But if you're providing services in Pahrump, then where do you want to look for grants in that county? What's that county? Come
Nye
on.
County.
What is it?
Nye.
Yep, Nye County. Okay. So remember that some of you all are providing services like in the rural areas in Pahrump specifically, and that's Nye County. And remember that the state of Nevada has 17 different counties. So I primarily talk about Southern Nevada because I think that that's where you all are providing a lot of your services. But I understand that some businesses and nonprofits might be reaching to a further geographic area. And so if you're wanting to look for grants, don't forget to look for grants in the other counties within the state of Nevada. Okay, if you're providing services in those areas. Also, let's talk city. Where do you guys need to be looking in Southern Nevada for grants on a city level? I'm asking for your participation so we don't get tired, and
Um,
I know you guys are
okay.
paying attention. It's after
So
6:30. It's
Like,
dinner
so
time.
like
North
so
Las
like the
Vegas.
city, like yeah, city of Las Vegas, city of North Las Vegas,
You got it. And I see
city of
Merrick.
Henderson,
All right, Merrick, you're missing one. You're missing
Clark County.
one that I would add in there. So we got North Las Vegas. Yep, you got the city of Las Vegas, Henderson. You got it, Angela Mesquite. Where else do you want to look? They're not too far, but they're far enough.
Boulder
Boulder,
City.
yeah, there you go. Boulder
Mhm.
City. So you guys, remember that while we don't have a whole lot of cities, so I'm from Los Angeles County, you guys, and we are citied up in LA County, right? Like you drive 10 minutes and you're in a whole different city, right? In LA County, you can drive through Pasadena, Northridge, Granada Hills, Chatworth, all in like 20 minutes, right? I'm going to go through Hawthorne, Inglewood, Compton, Long Beach, right? Here we have, a couple of cities. And so your business may, a nonprofit organization may be providing services to all of those geographic areas in all of those cities. And so make sure that you are looking at all of those cities to see what grant opportunities they have. Okay. One caveat that I want to share with you when we're starting to talk about geographies is that certain grant opportunities may require your business to be licensed in that geographic area in order to access funding via grants from their entities. Okay. What do I mean? What do I mean? Because this is another area where some of my clients had a misstep because they knew that they had a state business license. Yay, great. But then when the county put out a grant, they did not have a county business license. So guess what? They did not qualify to apply for that grant? Cameron, you have a question.
Yes. So when we talk about like the geographical areas, obviously there's city funding. Um, is there smaller, I guess you would call them corporations or whatever, where I could apply, let's say, for example, in Summerlin or Green Valley, like a township versus like a city grant? Or is
Not,
that something that usually gets passed up?
no, not that I'm aware of. Although those are considered like neighborhoods in Clark County, that's how they operate. Now, I will say this. I will say that I don't pay attention enough to what goes on in various neighborhoods. Like, I don't get that granular. So, I'm not saying that there is nothing going on at those neighborhood levels. Um, so I can't outrightly say no. But what I can say is that areas like Summerlin, like Anthem, like Centennial are not in it of themselves municipalities. Okay. They're not government entities. They are just like named neighborhoods, right? Yeah. And many of them have associations. So what I do know is that on the county level, and I think at on some city level, sometimes there are grants that associations can apply for. Okay, like neighborhoods can apply for certain grants, like if they want to do like graffiti removal, or if they want to do something with the youth in their neighborhood. They may opt to do something with the businesses that are located in their neighborhood, right? Again, that would be similar to what would be kind of like a pass-through grant, though, right? So, in general, I look more at the federal, state, county, and city level. I don't necessarily get down to neighborhoods, but I'm not telling you not to do that. Okay. All righty. I see some other questions. Yes. Someone shared that sometimes county commissioners may have specific grants in their specific districts. Yes. But again, that would still be considered a municipal grant or a grant that is connected to an official government entity, right? So a district is just a geographic boundary. It is still part of the county. It's not a neighborhood or association. It's just a line, right, for that district, but it is still the county officially. So the county would still run and operate that grant. Okay. So I share that with you all to say that if certain grant opportunities are coming out, you may need more than just your state license. Okay. Like most of us are familiar with Silver Flume, right? Okay. But you may need to have a Clark County business license. You may need to have a City of North Las Vegas business license or City of Henderson business license if you want to apply for a grant in that jurisdiction. Reach out to them and ask. Okay, to find out. And sometimes it may be time oriented. Catch this, grants have eligibility criteria. And so one of the criteria that they may say is you needed to have been licensed in our jurisdiction starting January 1 of 2026 in order to apply for our grant that we just announced on July 1st of 2026, right? Meaning that they'll say you can't go and get a business license today and apply for our grant. No, no, no. We want you to have been already licensed. So it may be that maybe they'll say, yeah, if you just go ahead and go and get a business license today, you can apply for the grant. Every grant has different criteria, and this is where you have to read to be able to know if that grant is specific to your organization. So I mentioned Silver Flume. Silver Flume is the state website, and I think they're kind of changing some stuff now, so don't hold me to it. But that is the actual website where you would go and register your business as an entity in the state of Nevada. And I see that someone put the website there. And I think that the Nevada Secretary of State is making some changes. But go onto their website and you'll be able to learn about that. And if you are interested in, oops, sorry guys, I jumped out. I don't know how these red lines are popping up on my screen. Get a little confused here. But if you guys have questions about business licenses, you can contact the Secretary of State, okay, here in the state of Nevada. All right, let's talk private foundations. Private foundations. So, how many of you have a library card? Put a one in the chat if you have a library card. Tap a one in the chat for me. Where are my library card holders? Another quick, just interesting fact, just because I like to be a person that knows interesting things about where I live. How many library systems do we have here in Southern Nevada? Any guess? Any guess? Can you name them? Again, you guys can come off of mute or put it in the chat. Can you guys name some library systems that we have here?
I mean, besides Henderson, North Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas Clark County.
Hey,
Oh,
my girl
okay.
ran them off, ran them off. Yes.
Okay.
So remember, we
Okay.
have like three different library systems. You have the Las Vegas Clark County Library District, you have the Henderson Library District, and you have the North Las Vegas Library District. Then shout out to Juanita, who is like, yeah, we got law libraries too. Yes, we do, right? You have like the Clark County Law Library, and then, of course, like our universities and college system. CSN has a library system, right? UNLV, Nevada State College. And then I learned recently, you guys, that Vegas PBS has a special needs library. I didn't know that. A special needs resource library. So there are a lot of library systems that we have here, you guys. And yes, and there is a library system in Nye County. Yep. Pahrump. Please think about utilizing your library system. Why? Because you are paying for it. What do I mean by that? You are paying for the library system via your tax dollars. And so you should utilize your library system. Why? Because they will give you access to something called Candid. Write it down. Candid, Candid. This website will allow you to search for grant opportunities. And you can get access to it by being a card carrying member of your local library. Okay. And so you'll be able to find and get access to private foundations, and you can filter in that system and get access to grants and know where are the grants, what are the private foundations that are funding businesses, that are funding nonprofits, what are their pillars or what are their priorities. This is what you need to know about private foundations and accessing private foundation funding. What's important is that private foundations often have priorities. They may call them pillars, they may call them areas of focus. We like acronyms in the grant world, okay, and synonyms. So they may be called something different, but essentially what it means is that they have their priority areas. They may say, we only give to youth serving organizations, or we only give to health in organizations that are in the health industry, a health sector, or food service, right? Or small businesses, or we only give to nonprofits. You must have a 501c3, right? So, various private foundations have different approaches to how they deliver grants out to the community. Some foundations, you can just apply, via their website or whatever their regular process is. Some foundations require you to kind of make an introduction of yourself first, of your entity, not yourself as a person or individual, but of your organization, your business, or your nonprofit through something called a letter of interest, an LOI, or a letter of inquiry. We like acronyms and synonyms, okay? So LOI could be either what's known as a letter of interest, or a letter of inquiry. And sometimes you have to go through that process first for them to tell you whether or not they are interested in you. Okay. Um, and sometimes you may need to provide them a little bit of information about your organization first. Um, Kind of give a summary, sort of. Have you guys ever heard of an executive summary? Do you know what that means? You know what that is? What is an executive summary? Can anybody come off of mute or put it in the chat? Tell me what an executive summary is. Okay, I'm going to tell you, in the grant world, we also like to call it an abstract. Have you guys ever heard that? Yep. It is a high level overview about your organization, right? This is our name. Here's when our organization was founded. Here is the service that we provide. We've been in business this long. We have this many staff. We have this many volunteers. Um, we have serviced over this number of people or so this many products in the past year. Does that make sense? Okay. It's a high level overview. Your business should have an executive summary right now. Okay, right now. It could be part of your business plan, right? It's like that beginning section. If you have a business plan, that very beginning section, like maybe one or two paragraphs, one page, right, is your executive summary, just one page. How long is your executive summary? One page, right? So two or three paragraphs, that's it. That's your executive summary. So in your letter of interest or your letter of inquiry, you're submitting your executive summary essentially, telling that private foundation about your organization. And they, in turn, are deciding whether or not they want to invite you to give more information through their full grant process, okay, where you actually have to submit a full narrative and answer questions, um, and a budget and maybe your other supporting documentation. Okay. So just know that some grant processes may be a two-step process, and that first step of the process might be something called a letter of interest or letter of inquiry. I have also seen certain entities also call it a pre-application. Okay. So just know that those things are synonymous. All right. Let's talk about corporate sponsorships, because sometimes corporations might sponsor your organization. They may not call it a grant, they may call it a sponsorship. Okay. And this might be where they give a cash donation or contribution. They may give something that is called in-kind support. Do you guys know what I mean by that? Do you know what that means? In-kind, in-kind support, or an in-kind donation. You know what
Yes,
that
it could
is?
be it could be anything. It could be their staff time, it could be facility use, it could be a product.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Jolena. Yes. So it could be like tangible goods or services. You got it. Yep. Excellent, Monica. So yes. So let's say, I don't know, I have a client that owns a fourplex. We helped her get a grant. Oh, Eric, I've got to send you over that success story. She's an MV Grow client. So I was connected through a client through the MV Grow program. I helped her to apply for a grant. She was able to get a $20,000 grant to help do some repairs and upgrades on a fourplex, a property that she owns in the city of North Las Vegas. Um, and I also encouraged her. She houses people that are formerly incarcerated at this property. And so, what she needs sometimes are things like bedding, pillows, toiletries, hygiene products, right? And perhaps she doesn't have the budget for that. Those are like consumable things or things that she's using on a regular basis. It needs to kind of turn over or wash or clean or, replace. And so you may go to a corporation, say like a Home Depot, a Target, um, Lowe's, Sam's Club, Walmart, and you may ask them for these items to be donated to your organization. That is something that would be considered a sponsorship, okay, or in-kind donation because it's tangible goods that have value. It's not a cash grant, but it's something that you don't have to spend out of pocket. Okay. And so it's still kind of like in that realm of a grant or financial support, but it's an in-kind donation or sponsorship. Eric, I see
So
you off mute.
Janise, I know that for confidentiality, you didn't mention who the client was, but I'm going to mention that it's Nina Bailey. And
It
the
is.
reason I can say that is because Nina Bailey's story was featured on the Nevada Grow website. I'm dropping that link into the chat for anybody who's interested to read that story. She was featured last month.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Eric. I didn't say it, but I'm so glad that you guys have permission to share that. And yes, and so very excited for Miss Bailey, and what she's doing in the community. She also considers her business somewhat of a social entrepreneurial type of business, meaning that she has a impactful mission. It's a for-profit business, but she's looking to make impact in the community and help people in the community. And American Express and Main Street America was the grant source that we were able to get her approved for that $20,000 grant. So lots of great things happening. Here are some websites where you could actually go to search for grant opportunities. So, grants.gov, as we mentioned before, Grant Station is another database. The Foundation Directory, there's a website that's called Skip. There's a website called Grant Watch, and then also Instrumental. Now, some of these websites you need to be mindful because they will focus on perhaps one particular sector, meaning like they primarily focus on nonprofit, posting nonprofit grant opportunities. Other websites might post primarily small business. Certain websites like grants.gov, they post opportunities for both. Um, Even for faith-based organizations, that's a question that I get frequently. Can churches and or faith-based organizations get government grants? Yes. The opportunity notice will tell you which organizations, types of organizations are eligible for a specific grant opportunity. So, um, I want you guys to make sure that you are just looking to make sure that you know if the database is going to be useful to you. Also, some databases are subscription based. Okay. And so be mindful if you are paying subscriptions for access to certain databases. That's why I'm sharing with you that your local library may be able to get you access. I shared with you guys earlier that I am a student and I am a student with UNLV. And because I am a student with UNLV, when I log into the library with my UNLV account and credentials and I search grants, I get access at no cost to me because I am a student to GrantWatch. Okay. And so other university and college systems may give students access to grant websites as well. So just be mindful of that, that if you are in any way connected to a university, to a college system, whether it be a community college, junior college, university, or state college, that you as a student may have access to that. And some college systems may provide the public access to their library systems also. I don't know which ones do, but you can certainly call and ask them. Okay. I remember being on the campus of a HBCU. Some of you may have heard of Prairie View. I was doing a campus tour there, and they were sharing with us that they allow the public to access a certain portion of their library. And so that's why I share with you that you may be able to get access to grant databases through universities, even if you are not a student there, or college systems. Even if you're not a student, you need to call them and find out. Okay, eligibility criteria. I've hinted around to this or alluded to this, that most grants, when they are evaluating you, or as you are looking for grant opportunities, you need to be evaluating that grant opportunity, okay, for the eligibility criteria. Um, you want to assess if your organization meets the funder criteria. And there may be criteria as far as the type of organization you are. Like I said, nonprofit, small business, faith-based organization, church. Does your nonprofit have a 501c3? Does it not have 501c3 standing with the IRS? So that might be one eligibility criteria. They may say also your organization needs to have been in business for 2 years or more, or a year or more. So you want to look for any type of timelines that's related to eligibility. They may tell you the dollar range, right? They may say this grant is for $10,000 or $5,000, or 50,000, 100,000, $1 million. I know everybody wants $1 million grant, right? I know it. You know how I know it? Because people are emailing me and asking me about it. That's how I know, right? The question that you have to ask, yes, I know. I see the hearts. I see the hearts. The question that I really, really, really want you to ask yourself is, does your organization have the capacity to manage that grant? Whatever the amount is, whatever the amount is, whether it's $1,000 grant, 50,000, or $1 million grant, can you really manage it? Have you guys heard the phrase, prove faithful in little and you'll be faithful in much? Think about grants as building a resume. Think about grants as building a resume, right? Most people entering their careers or entering business don't start out as the CEO, automatically, right? Unless you're starting your own business. But, if you're working for someone, chances are you didn't start out automatically as the CEO all the time, right? You had to work your way up to that, right? So sometimes you may need to go through a couple of different grant opportunities at a lower amount to get your footing, right? To get some experience, to understand what is the grant life cycle. What is the grant life cycle? What do I mean by that? Does that resonate with you all? What is a grant life cycle? And if you don't know that, you may not be ready yet for the $1 million grant. because you're going to have to go through all those grant life cycles and you need to know the stages. Okay. So, um, within the grant life cycle, there are various stages. I need an S there. There are various stages. So the beginning of the grant life cycle is when you are searching, right? You're just kind of looking and seeing, does this grant make sense for my organization? The next thing is you've made a decision like, yes, this is the right grant for me. So now I need to start preparing for the grant. That is the second stage. That is stage number 2. Then the third stage is we're actually preparing the application, right? I'm actually writing the application. Okay. Then the next step is I'm submitting it. You may think that writing is the same as submission. It is not. It is not. You know how I know? Because a lot of people have written grants that have never been submitted. Trina Marie was like, what? Yes. Why would they do that, Trina Marie? It happens. It is a separate stage. Writing is separate from submission. Maybe they wrote the grant, right? They got it in a nice Word doc. And then that deadline just crept up on them and they didn't get it put into the portal, into the online portal. Wow. Boo. Right? Okay. After submission, the next stage might be like follow up, right? Like you got to follow up. Watch your email, look for notifications, because what if the funder wants additional information from you, right? What if the funder wants additional information from you? So you need to be watching for any follow-up requirements after you submit. After submission and after follow-up, then there is notice of status. Prayerfully, it's a notice of award, right? Notice of award. After notice of award, you guys are celebrating, you putting hearts in the chat, but guess what? That's not the end. Guess what you have to do next? The next stage is negotiation. Why? Why might I need to negotiate a grant after they told me I was awarded the grant? Any idea?
Might be what their expectations. You might need to negotiate what they are expecting from you.
Absolutely. So even though, remember I told you guys that a grant is a contract? It's a contract between me and you that you're gonna do what you said you're gonna do, right? You might also to negotiate the amount of the grant. Why? Why? Why would negotiating the amount of the grant be a consideration? Come on, you guys.
Costs have changed.
Say that again.
The costs have changed.
Okay, okay. A change, but the change is they offered you, the grantor offered you more or less than what you requested. Okay, so in the grant world, you are requesting a $20,000 grant, but what if they have more money to give and they come back to you and say, "Would you like 30,000?" That's negotiation. Yes. Thank you kindly. I would like to accept, right? But you're going to have to tell them that. Now, what if you requested 30,000, but they come back and say, we can give you 20,000. Do you want that? You may or may not. I don't know. You need to tell them. So there is a negotiation phase, and what I call a post award stage after they tell you that you have won the grant. Cameron, your question.
So what about if, for example, like this is a situation I'm kind of in currently because I had a business plan written up for my business, and we grew a lot faster than expected. So, what if I applied for a grant for a certain amount? They offered me the grant, and now by the time I've been awarded the grant, I need to say, hey, we've expanded to this area, or we need more for XYZ. Is that also something that you might need to renegotiate?
Hmm. Some grants allow that, some grants will not. You better take that money and run and do your best, right? That's what I'm going to tell you. That's my professional advice. However, there is something that there's multiple approaches. That's why this is a grant strategy. Remember, way back in the beginning of the presentation, I talked to you guys that this is a grant strategy, right? Like this is not a one and done, right? So you may have to go through a process of layering your funding, meaning that you may have to apply for a different grant, another grant as a matching grant, right? And saying, hey, that's why I said it's like a resume. It's like you're building a resume. Because now, when I have that one grant on my resume, Cameron, now you leverage that, right? And now I say, now I can put in the grant application. Once I've been awarded a grant before, now I use that. I'm going to use that puppy and I'm going to be talking about it as an accomplishment, as, something that we've done that's positive. We were awarded this $10,000 grant. Here's what we're doing with it. And we are seeking another $10,000 to make our impact even greater, right? And that's what you're starting to put in your application. Or, as you said, Cameron, you go back to that funder and you say, when we initially applied, we applied for 10,000. We thought that it was going to cover the cost of our project. However, in just this 6-month period since we've been waiting for the grant announcement to come through, our costs have changed and it's 30% higher than what we had anticipated. Would your organization be able to offer us, uh, 13,000 or $15,000 because we originally thought 10,000 would cover it. If they say yes, great, you're up. If they say no, you better graciously say, okay, we understand, and perhaps we'll have an opportunity to apply for a second round of funding, right? So I just gave you like 3 different approaches, right? Number one, go to another funder and leverage that and ask for additional funding from a different funder. Go back to the same funder and ask them for more funding now. And if not, then ask them about consecutive funding. Okay, so those are like 3 different approaches. And make sure that you do the best job with that grant, Cameron, so that you can go back as a success story and ask them for additional cycles of funding if they have more funding available. Or now, when you go to a different grant source, then you can share that success story. Okay, great question. I see a question in the chat I want to get to. Let's see. The government allows us so much money per district and they have to distribute. So yeah, sometimes that's the case. So in the situation like Cameron described, let's say the funder is the government organization, and let's say they had a $500,000 budget and they had already given out let's say 450,000 of that, but they're getting close to the end of the cycle when they need to have granted out all that money. They have this excess of $50,000. This is when Cameron, they may say, oh, you know what? We had that one business that said that they needed additional funding. They may be able to come back and give additional money. So yeah, you always communicate and stay in communication with the funder if expenses change. Also, I want to throw something in there. If you need to make changes within your budget, so let's say it was a $10,000 grant and you asked for $7,000 in equipment and $3,000 in personnel. But now you need to flip flop that. You need the 7,000 to be in personnel and the 3,000 only to be in equipment. You must ask permission for that. Okay, so anytime that you want to make a change in how you are using the funding that is different than what you told them in the beginning, go back and request for something that's called a budget adjustment. Okay, that's what you want to ask them for. I want to make an adjustment in our budget. Eric, yes.
So that's exactly what I was saying. If you request a budget revision, if it's
Yep.
if it's if it's specifically for growth or something of that nature, they may allow you to do it if it's in the grant rules. So
Yes, absolutely. And so I'm going to put those terms um, in the chat because we talked about budget adjustment or revision. Okay. And that's kind of what you're referring to, Cameron. Yes, grants are itemized. So um, I'm not able because of our time to talk a whole lot about budget right now. Maybe Eric will need to do a part two. And what we will do is I can talk more about budgets in a part two. Someone here asked me about additional grant education. And yes, if you go on my website that I shared with you guys earlier, then you'll be able to go onto courses and you can see the various courses that we offer. I want to wrap up what we're talking about here tonight because we're getting to our time. Um, I want to talk about red flags. Red flags, just because in this day and time of social media, I get a lot of questions, you guys, that come to me. Please be wary of grants with unrealistic requirements, misalignment to your mission, or that's like overly brief in the timeline. Um, be wary of if people are DMing you or inboxing you and saying, "Hey, do you want to apply for our grant? It only costs you $200." No. Okay. I am not saying that there are no application fees tied to grants, but it shouldn't be $200. Okay. I do see in the world of business grants where sometimes a nominal fee, let's say $10 is what I say nominal is, 15, 25, 50 is pushing it. Okay. Anything over $50, you guys send it to me so I can suss it out. Okay. Um, for nonprofits, I can pretty much say 99.9999999. I have not seen application fees. Okay. For small businesses, I have seen application fees maybe like 50% of the time, depending on where you're looking. For government grants, 9.9999999% of the time, I have not seen application fees. Okay. So I just want you guys to be watchful of that. I want you to avoid funding sources that lack transparency, that's vague in their eligibility criteria. Like if they say, this is the easiest grant you'll ever apply for, and 100% of our people are approved same day. You better send that to me so fast before you apply. Okay? Just be mindful. I see you, Jolena. Be mindful of those commercials, right? Like you guys, we have a sixth sense, right? We have an intuition. I think that sometimes businesses can be a target, nonprofits can be a target for certain things because we're in the, you know, we're in that realm. We're interested, right? We're already intrigued. Our mind is looking for it, right? But just be watchful of it. And uh look for the successes, right? You and look for a secondary source to validate, like, I'm not just going to your website, I'm going to LinkedIn, I'm going to this, I'm going to that. If you say this business got a grant, I'm looking for that business. I might be sending an email about us. So look for other ways to validate that this is really a true grant opportunity and that it's legitimate. Okay. Homework assignment. If you're interested, you can definitely go to our website. We have a workbook that you can download, and we have worksheets that you can work through some of the information that we've been talking about. Like it can help you to organize your executive summary. I have a worksheet on a budget template. There's a worksheet on partners. We haven't talked about how important partnerships and collaborations are in the grant world, but that is something that is very important. Again, you can connect with me here on these various websites and avenues. And I thank you guys so much for your time. I want to stop here. I will stick around for a couple of questions if you guys have questions. And again, just thank you so much to Envy Grow for allowing me to talk about something that you guys see that I'm very passionate about. I think that all businesses and nonprofits deserve to have access to this information. And so that's why we offer this type of education at no cost. Um, Connect with us and let me know if you have any additional questions. Okay, you guys? I'm going to stop recording and listen for your questions.
So, Janise, before I jump off, I want to say great information. I would like to see everyone in this session in a second level session where it's more advanced. So I'd love to see that. Everyone, please complete the survey. The link is dropped into the chat. Remember, nvgrow.org. If you haven't applied already, we've got resources to help your business to grow. And thank you, everyone.